I've been really looking forward to sharing this episode with you. It's an amazing, hope-filled discovery in grief that was new to me. And the best way I can describe it is to say, Jesus really, really gets it. Now, this YouTube series and the book, All About Grief, is shared with the hope that we can help everybody navigate their way through the inevitable journey from death into grief and mourning, and to put into that journey some practical thoughts and some dependable insights and scriptures, bringing comfort to those who mourn and equipping those who care. And forgive me, but please make sure you don't miss an episode. Please do hit the subscribe button, and feel free to join the community by chatting away in the comments box or asking questions, as together we support each other on the journey of grief. Now, grief that deals honestly with the pain is part of the healing process. You know the story where Jesus wept at the tomb of Lazarus, even though he was about to raise him from the dead. What you may not know is that the Greek word used for weeping suggests that Jesus was deeply agitated, emotionally stirred, groaning. And Hebrews tells us he also agonized with loud crying and tears in Gethsemane at the thought of his own impending death. Follow the thread here. Jesus gets it. So this well-known scripture helps us, and it takes us to the death of one of Jesus' closest friends, Lazarus. And this poignant moment, as you already know, produced the shortest verse in the Bible. And the context reads like this: when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit, greatly troubled. Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. Jesus had lost his own father sometime after the age of 12, exactly when we're not sure. That means he watched his siblings experience the grief of losing a dad. And with all the positive statements we've made, Jesus doesn't minimize the pain of grief. He doesn't whitewash over it. He can share in it intimately. And in this short story, with the shortest verse in the Bible, we're given the comforting revelation. Jesus understands grief. He understands entering into other people's grief because it deeply troubled him. He understands the grief of losing a best friend. He understands the grief of losing a dad. He understands the grief of siblings who've also lost their dad. He, more than anyone, knows that death is conquered, but it still leaves widows, orphans, and bereaved parents behind. And think of this story. At the time of Jesus being presented in the temple as a baby, Simeon and Anna meet Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus, and Simeon prophesies over Jesus. Then he says these words that I'm about to share with you. And just before he shares them, we note that the child's father and mother, Joseph and Mary, marveled at what was said about Jesus. Then Simeon blessed them and said these words to Mary: this child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your own soul too. He was preparing a mother for the death of her son, and describing so poignantly the kind of grief that Mary would experience. Now, we don't know for sure, but I think it's more than likely Mary would have shared that prophetic utterance with Jesus as he grew up, and he would have ahead of time shared in that sharp sword-like piercing of his mother's soul. Whether it happened that way or not, what we do know is at the cross there's a remarkable exchange where he makes grief preparation, and he says to his mum, Mary, behold your son. And he says to John, his favorite disciple, behold your mother. Whatever else was being set up, Jesus understood the importance of close, trustworthy support at a time of grief. He knew his loved disciple and the mum who brought him into the world, even with all the wonderful miraculous events that would follow, would need help in their grief. And then in Matthew's Gospel, Jesus learns about the death of his close friend, his childhood friend, his cousin John, and the writer offers this glimpse about Jesus. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Whatever else that tells us, it shows that he knows and understands the need for privacy and a solitary place, and experienced that need for himself. Bear Grylls, in his wonderful book, describes that moment like this. From the moment I saw Yeshua that morning, I could tell something was wrong. We met him down by the lake, and he looked like he'd the weight of the world on his shoulders. I'd never seen him so visibly upset. It took Yeshua a long time to recover from the death of his childhood friend and closest cousin, and in some ways I don't think he ever got over it. If anything, the death of Yohanan made Yeshua even more focused on completing his mission. If you've been there, or if you were to ask anyone who grieves the death of a loved one, one of the things they feel is that they grieve alone, that no one really understands them. And to be honest, on many levels, that's a true perception. One of the readers of All About Grief puts it this way: I do believe no one really understands the depths of grief unless it happens to them. For others, life just goes on while your life stops. And that's often true on a human level. But the liberating truth is, in our deepest pain, in those ceaseless seeping tears, or in a tsunami of grief, Jesus has been there and understands it. He's described in the Bible as a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, acquainted with the kind of grief you and I experience. And to be acquainted with grief means to have personally experienced it, to know it firsthand, to have a close, almost familiar understanding of its weight and reality. It implies a level of familiarity with grief, a level of experience with deep grief, not just having heard about it or seen it in others, but having lived through its pain yourselves. The psalmist talks about God storing our tears in a bottle. Jesus validates your tears and mine, your pain and mine, your burden and mine. He doesn't rush it, trivialize it, minimize it, or want you to move on or be fixed. Jesus wept. He validates it. His tears are also in that bottle. We really do have a high priest who gets it and who has been there. Folks, there's not a single tear of grief missed. Your tears and my tears are treasured. Treasured so much they're stored metaphorically in God's bottle. They're important, in other words. They are welcome. They are treasured. They are validated. They are not forgotten. And before we can move into the promises of God, we need to know and believe that every expression of grief is valid. And we need to know we have permission to grieve and mourn, and that Scripture reveals and affirms both, but so does the man of sorrows acquainted with grief. The next episode takes a look at the biblical expressions of grief. What does the Bible describe as it looks at different ways individuals grieve? Please don't miss that episode. Easiest way is hit subscribe, and please do write or ask questions in the comment box as we support one another navigating the journey of grief.